Hi everyone, Teddy Baldassarre here with Louis Erard, Geneva, Switzerland, with Manuel. Great to see you.
Oh, Teddy, great to see you too. Thanks for coming over.
Always a pleasure, always a pleasure. So what I'd like to do, now, new year for Louis Erard, new watches. I'm with the man himself, talking about the brand who knows it like no other. Let's first establish though, Louis Erard. Some people might be familiar, but what I've always liked about your brand is there's this concept of value for money, but also fusing that with the craft of watchmaking on a variety of levels. The métier d'art, what's happening on that front, the collaboration with different watchmakers that have become very exclusive that you maybe can't get into at certain prices. You have these collaborations that I think are unique, points for a watchmaker and to show off what they can do at different prices, but also for an enthusiast and a collector to get into that. But could you give us a sense of Louis Erard? And I'd like to look at some of the pieces in front of us.
Well, Louis Erard, I would say, is a bit of a, how do you call this? The first step into high-end watchmaking. It has all the elements of haute horlogerie independent watchmaking, but at very affordable price points. We only produce 4,000 watches a year, which makes us very exclusive. And within these 4,000 watches, we try, as you said, to infuse a lot of elements of high watchmaking, haute horlogerie, craftsmanship, artisanship, but also people creativity. It's a people's brand, if you like, in this sense, because we work with artisans, which are also people. We work with the watchmakers, collaborations, but it's mostly with people. So what to say? It's a brand that I would say has established itself pretty quickly in the last 4 years. I took it over 4 years ago, 4.5 years. And we really position it as a, I would say, cool, collectible, extremely well-made, independent Swiss watch brand.
So let's start with kind of going through some of the watches. Now, I think one place to start, this is more entry-level position for you all, but you have a compelling, I think, proposition and look to go along with it. Maybe look at this guilloche here.
Yeah, actually here you have the spectrum of what we do today. We started about 2,000 Swiss francs, $2,500, and we go up to, with the tourbillon that I will talk about later, up to about 18,000, 19,000. The majority, our core stays between these 2 to 5. Because I like this little niche. I'm happy there.
It's a good sweet spot.
And we launch product almost every month because we have so much creativity and so much ideas that we just can't hold it back. We timed it. So this is our February launch you have in hand. And this is also the new, I would say, kind of entry-level, non-limited watch. It's a guilloche pattern dial. I would say that within the collectors community, kind of dials are very sought after, very hard to get on very, very exclusive brands.
Yes.
So we decided to make it more democratic, non-limited, first of all, but with the same kind of logic. So you have this 3 different types of guilloche pattern that are put together in this kind of mosaic to give very strong dial. Here it's on the 39 millimeter with the blue and anthracite colored dial with our signature hands. Still the Celita movement, which has been proven over the last 4 years as being very reliable.
Yes.
When I started with Louis Erard, I had 2 people for after sales service. Today I only have I just have the person which does 20% after sales service, and the rest is basically assembly. Why? Because we have seen over the last 4 years I haven't almost never received a watch back. So I don't know whether people put them in the safe, which I don't think. At this price point.
You don't buy a brand like this, just put it in a safe.
But somehow we really managed to have extremely good quality, and this is really what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring a lot of watchmaking value, a very good quality, the best if possible, at this kind of unprecedented prices.
Now I want to shift from traditional watchmaking to something more avant-garde.
Yeah, you can say this is avant-garde.
I would say so, because you look at this, as somebody that is into watches, and I'm even pondering, okay, what's going on? What time is it? Tell us more about this.
Well, look, we love to do collaborations, and I started to do collaborations with watchmakers. Okay, Alain Silberstein has been the first one, Vianney, Chaikin last year. We have a few to come. I'll talk about this later on. And aside of the watchmakers, I started to work with my friends in the watch industry, Second, Messena.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people that I think have something to say. They're not just nice and cool people, but they also have something to say. So this watch is done by an artist called Olivier Mosset, which lives in Tucson, Arizona, which is quite one of the very established artists of this kind of anti-art movement. So this is also somewhere the provocation comes in. And initially, when I was talking with him, he said, I said to him, "What kind of watch do you see?" And he said, "I know, I'm a biker. Remember Easy Rider?" I said, "Well, yeah, somehow." There's this scene where he pulls off the watch of his wrist and throws it away. I want to have the same watch. I said, "Well, that's a challenging element." Anyway, what we kept is the idea of the biker. So this dial has a base dial is paint used for choppers.
Okay.
Which has this kind of sparkling effect. And then he does very abstract elements. So we did this kind of time sculpture where reading the time, you need time to read the time. Okay, it's a very philosophical watch as well, because we played it in a way that hands are of equal length from the center. So it's almost impossible to see where is the direction. We have very little holes at the end of each hand. So this is typical regulator movement, hour, minute, second. And you need really to take this kind of time to look into the watch. It's a very philosophical piece. And and you know, some people love it, some people don't understand it, but that's fine.
It's pretty cool. I mean,
it's pretty cool.
I'm not one to go this crazy, but this is something that you don't see.
No.
I mean, and I like the idea that it's almost as if it's a watch that it's like appearing as broken. Like the hands are loosely just floating inside on the dial, and it's just madness.
But what's also crazy is every hour, every minute, it's another kind of sculpture. It becomes like science. You know, you can really read a lot into this watch. And this is, as you said, it doesn't make sense to do a watch like this. And that's what we like to do. We can afford it. So we don't do it because it's commercial. We do it because we want to do it. Or as they say, because we can. We also asked him to hand sign every watch strap. So like a real artist signs his oeuvre. He did as well. And then he said, yeah, but if I sign it, it's going to wear off. So if you wear off, well, you lose the art piece, you only have the watch left. So we said we put a little tag. So basically, it's a watch that you cannot read the time or very difficultly, and that you cannot wear.
It's clever.
That's good. So, but anyway, there's a second strap coming. So if you want to, you can always exchange it.
I think this is a perfect segue now. We're talking about being rational in watchmaking. I think one of the complications that probably no longer even intersects with the idea of rationality is a tourbillon.
Yeah.
You also have Alain Silverstein here, which is a collaboration that has, I think, really elevated the brand in the last 3 to 5 years and what you've done.
Yeah.
Now you fuse that with a Swiss tourbillon, if I'm correct, right?
100%.
And at this price, now this is where I would maybe push back on you and say, this is actually, maybe there is some rationality here, because that's not something we typically see at the price range that this is at. So tell me more about this.
A lot of people love what we do. They say, well, you have some of the greatest crafts, some of the greatest stories. But why you only use Solita movements? We want to see something more manufactured. We want to see a little bit something that, you know, kind of in-house logic. And I said, wait, we're just at the beginning of our story. And I had this in mind to not just collaborate with the greatest watchmakers, the greatest artisans, but also with the greatest, most talented watchmakers for movements. And obviously I had to start with the king of complications, probably the most emotional and unrational complication, which is the tourbillon. And, you know, the tourbillon is something that is a bit strange, because it's to a certain extent, it used to be the reference. And then there's been a bit of different orientations and price points. And I said to myself, what is important for me that when we do it in a very creative way, in a very strong way. So that's where we also integrated Alain into the design. So it's a watch designed by Alain Silverstein, but also in the most affordable possible way.
This prices for this is
less than 20,000 US, which probably makes it today one of the most, if not the most affordable Swiss-made tourbillon.
I'm struggling to think of another.
There's another bigger brand,
Yeah.
but I think in the meantime their price is about 50% above this, and they do much more volume because there's only 78 pieces. And how did we achieve this price? Because everybody would say, okay, and we knew that this was coming. People saying you cannot rationally bring a Tourbillon on the market for that price point. That's
Swiss. Yeah.
Well, you can. So we're total transparent on each and every component. So the gear train, the escapement, every screw, we give you the name of the supplier because we saw transparency in this case is very important. And why was it possible to achieve this price on this very particular tourbillon? Well, it's a little bit like in watchmakers when they do a tourbillon, they start with the escapement, which is very complex, takes a lot of time, and then they build the entire movement around it. Takes a lot of time, very complicated, and therefore often the prices are very high. We collaborated with a genius watchmaker, which is called Olivier Maury, which is based in La Chaux-de-Fonds in Switzerland. And what made him very strong is the way he thought. He thought, say, okay, I use base movement or platina that I produce, but that's flexible for different products, including micro rotors and others. And then I add the different components that I buy and source with the best suppliers. That's why he could take certain number of components, which were more industrial, and put them together in a watch and achieve this price. And it still comes as something totally manufactured, very exclusive. There's no comparison. So it's not like some other very strong brand who had a very good price. What they did, they used an existing movement like a typical 7750 ETA. They took off the escapement and put the tourbillon as an escapement, and that's how they achieved the price. But it's still a standard movement. Ours is really something that is unique and very, very different. So obviously we like the regulator. So we had to do it to a regulator tourbillon. Add a little bit complication. It's a hand-wound movement, so it's a manual winding movement, and it has, and again, important when you talk about hand winding is power reserve. So we have 100 hours, a bit over 100 hours.
It's impressive. And then for the case, remind me again, so titanium is
titanium grade 2 for the centerpiece and grade 5 for these side lugs, because you
high
can't
polish.
Exactly. Yeah. If you want to polish titanium, you have to have grade 5. Grade 2 is it's pretty impossible to polish.
And I love the hinging of the lugs here, or maybe if you want to call them lugs, I don't even know what you would call them, but it wears great too. Like, I love how the pull-through strap really conforms to the wrist at this hinge point, and it wears a lot smaller. What's the case size again on this?
40 millimeters.
Yeah. So it's
I think it's pretty...
It's wearable.
It's wearable.
Yes.
But, you also have, the tourbillon. What is interesting about the tourbillon is obviously this escapement, the motion of the watch. So if it's in a too small watch, I think it needs a bit of air to breathe.
Yeah, let it breathe. All right, so new tray in front of us. Now, this is a new collaboration for you all.
Yeah.
So I think to introduce the collaboration, we have to introduce the man and watchmaker first, correct? Can we do that? And then let's talk about the watches.
Within this ecosystem of the watchmaking industry, there is great artisans, incredible craftsmen, like the ones we used on the wood marquetry. But there's also artisans / craftsmen that have their own brand. And one of them is Cedric Johner. Cedric has been in this industry for 30 years. So he's a veteran. So am I a little bit. And I've known him for years and years. And we always got along. And I always wanted to do something with him because I considered that he's part of my history in the industry. What's interesting is he is actually a trained jeweler that learned the métier of watchmaking later on. But he has a very artisanal approach to watchmaking. In his 30 years of career, he only did 1,000 watches.
Incredible.
So what's that, about
30 a year? Good math. Yes, you got it.
Good. So it's basically nothing at the scale of what we know in other brands. And what makes him unique is he does everything by hand. He doesn't have one single computer, not one single CNC machine. He basically works the very, very traditional way. He's also the only one with 20 watches a year. He does all his cases with a file.
Unbelievable.
And you need obviously a lot of time. And I think he has a very interesting design language as well. He has this abyss case, he calls, which has a very particular shape. And I always found it intriguing. And I said, okay, that there is something to do within this collaboration. I said if he wants to do it, he obviously was open for it. And it helped us also to reinvent our own product. So we did this time 2 editions of 178. You know that 178 is our lucky number in collaborations. And we took this kind of shape and put it in our shape. So we suddenly have a hexagonal case. Looks like a hexagonal case, but actually it's a hexagonal bezel with this very strong signature. We made this very beautiful, very I would say refined dial based on his product. It was hard because he didn't have one single file, like Illustrator file so we had to do everything ourselves. Again with the computer because we need to do a bit more volume.
More work, but it ended up being great.
Because his numerals are not made in a logical way. So it's you really have to do it. Each Arabic numeral has to be redone.
Like a surrealist type of effect in a way.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But even it's a beautiful dial, this kind of gear shape pattern with the concave sub-dials, obviously regulator, with his signature feuille hands, leaf hands. This I mentioned hexagonal case, bezel. But then obviously Cedric being an artisan, we wanted to have his physical touch into the watch. So we decided that the best was to work on decoration. So he did each of the oscillating weight of the watch by hand with this tool here. It's this little tool. It's called a perloir. And since Cedric is a jeweler, he took this idea of decoration from jewelry. So basically, if you do these kinds of beads, the beads to hold the diamond, that's that kind of technique. So he did. I think there's over 230 of these beads on each of the oscillating weight, and it's been a huge work. I've been working on it for the last few months, not to say more.
Wow.
And well, we said we anyway want to launch it here in Geneva because we have a platform. There's also an opportunity to mutualize. We are in the same room with several other brands, and obviously Cedric is part of it, so he can also explain his story, explain his products. And I think in terms of refinement, it's probably one of the most I don't know. This watch has something. They all do, but this somehow has something very unusual.
I haven't seen anything like it. The case shape, the surrealist kind of warped numerals. I mean, it's beautiful. I love the perimeter and just the layout too.
And the colors are...
It's stunning. So you have a blue and then someone says purple lavender.
We call it mauve. It's a very subtle, it's a very poetic, it's a very emotional and a very personal product. And it's very much like Cedric himself. So this is a chance. As I said, we can do the rock and roll philosophy of time with a non-art contemporary artist, abstract, to the small artisan not in terms of size because he's pretty tall, but in terms of number of pieces he does. 30 pieces is obviously really not a lot. And I like that. I like that kind of spectrum in which I can play with Louis Erard, going from more established to more niche, to more crazy, to more colorful partners and collaborations.
And then case size is
39.
39.
We don't even talk about the basics.
Yeah, we'll talk about the idea first, and then we talk about the details further. And then, Sleeta movement on the inside, but you're getting that custom rotor. Yeah. By that, you really are meaning custom. I mean, this is going through a master watchmaker's hands, who's only produced 1,000 watches in his life, based in Geneva and been doing this for 30 years. That's very cool. So
it's not a full watch, but if you put it in perspective, there's two times 178, so it's 356. So it's 356 oscillating weight, which is about 1/3 of his 30 years production. Just on obviously it's not the full watch, but just the perspective sometimes is pretty interesting.
Yeah. And then for price on these?
On these were 4,000 Swiss, so it's about around 5,000, a little over 5,000 US. And I think it's incredible value for the money again. I love this piece.
These are so cool. They're well done.
Thank you.
And then one final watch in front of us. So we go back to another craft that
Yeah.
I think is held in high regard. There's an idea for collectors that know it,
Yeah.
but to see it at this price, very rare.
I don't think more than very rare
Yeah.
doesn't exist.
Yes.
I mean,
So why do it? Let's talk about it.
well, it's interesting. You know, I started my career when I built Jacquereau with full fire enamel down. I don't know why, but I have this kind of emotional connection with full fire enamel, the traditional full fire enamel. And there's only one company left in the world who does these very traditional full fire enamel on copper base with these up to 12 layers of enamel, goes into the oven at 800 degrees. You have a country enamel. Rejection rates are anywhere between 60 and 80%. It's a totally doesn't make sense kind of craft. But it's beautiful because at the end of the day, it's very simple. It's very pure. It's almost not visible as a craft. And full fire enamel, as I mentioned, there's this company in La Chaux-de-Fonds called Donzé, which belongs to the Ulysse Nardin group. They're the only ones who are able to do these kind of dials. I don't know how many dials they do a year, but I guess anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000, maybe. And they only have the very, very established brands. I'm obviously not allowed to name them, but you know, you go from the most famous high-end watch brands that do arts and crafts. They all use Donzé if they do full fire enamel. And when I took over Louis Erard, I had to start where I started, and they said, look, what we can give you is an allocation of 100 dials a year. Okay. And that's why all our métier d'art are 99 pieces, because I started with this. So I said, okay, keep one for me. Okay, that's the 100. So we do 99 on all the métier d'art. Full fire enamel is something very poetic, very special, and this time we used it for the first time. So we did a first edition in 2021, I guess, then another one in 2022, and now we're launching in 2024 the third edition, this time for the first time on a regulator, which is very interesting because before we did it on a two hands with a small second. So you have, obviously, on these kind of crafted pieces, they're all blued-staled hands.
Tempered?
Yeah, absolutely, because this is important for me. But since it's a regulator, you obviously have the one more hole in the dial.
Yes.
And you'd be surprised. So the hole actually to drill
Didn't think about that. Yeah.
costs 150 Swiss francs. So it's $200 additional on the cost, huh?
Yeah.
Not for the client.
Yes.
So, but it's very interesting. Why? And people say, well, why would you charge that amount of money for? Well, because it's such a difficult and such a complex craft that every time you have to water jet the hole, there's a lot of rejection.
And the failure rate increases.
And I would say that you can have 30-40% rejection rate just by the holes. So that obviously adds a lot of things, but it's just to put in perspective. I mean, $200 for a single hole. People would say, "Oh, crazy." We obviously try to remain in our logic, and the price point. This is 4,500 Swiss francs, so it's very, very affordable for the high level of craft. I mean, these dials are easily cost 1,000 Swiss francs. But we want to, and see, this is where I mentioned. This is where it's important for me as well. We have a business model where we, from the first day onwards, we said we do 50% of our business ourselves, and 50% through a network of the best partners. And with this business model, we're really able to actually decrease our markups quite substantially because we can live with our direct sales. So that's why we were able to come up with pieces where just the dial by itself, the most expensive dial we have in the whole collection is the wood marquetry. Cost us 1,800 Swiss francs. We sell the watch 3,900. So we don't make any money, but we don't care because I consider, again, it's a very emotional thing. Is it rational? I don't know, but I think this also helps to build the brand. And we also changed for the first time the numerals from the traditional Roman numerals into Arabic.
I love the typeface. I love it. I mean, that 8, I've been fixated on that 8 for quite a while. Well, Manuel, thank you so much. It's always it's an exercise for the soul when I come and see Louis Erard, because I think there's the passion that comes out of you. There's a passion that clearly you put into the product, and it's an authentic brand. It's a brand that is not chasing anything other than just being able to create stuff that is interesting, and it is guided by that very principle, and that's it. And I think that's, for me,
but that's
something different.
That's what that's what I consider what my watchmaking should be. I mean, I've been in this industry for 30 years, and it reached that point where I think that's what it should be. I think that's what I want to stand for. That's what I want to do, is not business, which is always a little nice side effect. But I want to create something that's sustainable, that is true, that is honest, and that's there for long term.
Manuel, thank you so much. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.